tea comes from one plant, the Camellia sinensis plant. And that plant has the longest relationship with humankind, 5,000-year relationship. So longer than any other product. Now it's the second most widely drank beverage after water, of course. And when it originally started 5,000 years ago, it was a medicine.
Yeah.
And then it became a meditation tool.
Right.
Which, is medicine in its own.
Welcome back to the Catalyst Podcast. Today we have the founder of Tealet, Elyse Petersen. I'm super excited to learn some things about tea and business ownership from this entrepreneur from here in Las Vegas. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Elyse.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much for having me on.
I know. I just met you online and then was looking at your website and was like, wow, I'm always fascinated the things that women come up with and the things that they start businesses with. And here you started this tea business. I know it's much more than that. So just tell us a little bit about your business and how you started it.
Yeah, so Tealet is a B2B marketplace that facilitates direct trade in between independent family-owned tea farms and tea business buyers. I started the business back in 2012, immediately following a Japanese focus MBA that I did at the University of Hawaii. Prior to that, I was a food scientist, so I worked in the food industry, and I was actually quite jaded. I started to work in the food industry because I'm passionate about food, cooking, providing food for people, and my professors had said, you can actually pursue that by working in the big food industry. And I ultimately came to find that I was essentially the one responsible for poisoning people, finding different additives or FDA regulations that we could bypass to make food more addictive, or it wasn't my vibe. And a friend convinced me to join the Peace Corps. So I was an agriculture extension agent in Niger, West Africa for 2 years, where I worked with rural farmers. And it was there that I realized the main thing missing from my passion in food was the connection of where food actually came from. So, food science focused more on the post-harvest. So that's like once the food leaves the farm, how is it processed and got into our food system? But I was working with these rural farmers in Niger and realized that's a big disconnect. So I knew I wanted to do some kind of work that would create that connection to the farms. And so when I returned to Hawaii, the first food science job that I was able to find was at a company called Itoen, which is a Japanese tea manufacturer. They're actually the largest tea manufacturer in the world. They make unsweetened green tea. Yeah, you can get it at Costco. I'm sure you've drank it before.
Yeah.
It's actually a very good drink. I had never drank tea before that. I was doing quality control there, and I really enjoyed drinking the tea. It was, felt good. It was hydrating. It made my body and my mind feel good. And I didn't feel like I was poisoning people. It was like the first food science job I had where I didn't feel I was poisoning people. But when I was building up the traceability program, which is a part of food safety, so that's basically when raw ingredients are brought into a factory, there's coding systems that you keep track of. And then the final product that's packaged has a code. So if a manufacturer contacts you and says, oh, this lot number of ingredient is contaminated with salmonella, you would be able to do a very exact recall and trace of every product that could potentially have that ingredient. Well, we were receiving 3-ton super sacks of powdered green tea with no codes. So any kind of coding that we put on our final product was obsolete because there was no coding on the raw materials. So I had asked my boss, I developed this program. I potentially would need to go to Japan to the suppliers and set this system up. And he said, oh, well, this is a Japanese company and all the management work is done in Japanese language. You don't speak Japanese, so you can't do it. It's none of your business. Don't worry about it. So I decided to get a Japanese MBA so that I, could.
Smart.
Yeah, I really was passionate about this product and this company. And so I decided to do that. And coincidentally, when I was doing that MBA, the USDA was funding research at the University of Hawaii at the College of Agriculture for Hawaii-grown tea. They had been funding this research since like the 1980s, and they'd found that just like coffee, tea can be grown in Hawaii and really good quality tea can be made, but they wanted to know, is there a market feasibility, and, what mistakes could be avoided, because, Hawaii coffee, there's been a lot of challenges and hurdles for the Hawaii farmers to compete in the international market. So I was hired as an MBA student because of my experience working at a tea company to finish out this research. And so I interviewed the tea farmers in Hawaii, and I learned a lot more about the farming of tea. And then coincidentally, it's all coincidences how I got here. I was networking to find my internship in Japan to finish out my MBA. And typically these MBA students get corporate internships in Tokyo in corporate offices. But if you network, you can actually get your own. And I met somebody who was doing e-commerce for tea farmers in rural Japan. And so I got matched up to do the internship there. So working with the Hawaii farmers and then spending 6 months in Japan with tea farmers there in a very rural part of Kyoto, where we were starting a nonprofit called the International Tea Farms Alliance. And there was a lot of work that had already been started before I got there, but I did a lot of the administrative work of setting programs up and actually setting up a project while I was there to bring different small tea growers from India, China, Korea, Taiwan to do a trade show in Japan, and then do a promotional festival for tea growing in that small village. I got to meet all of these small tea growers, and they were the ones that, told me their struggle in the market of getting good prices at their local markets, and what the value of their tea is internationally, and how they don't receive any of that value. They may receive only, 5 to 10% of the final market value of tea, because majority of the value is, I'm talking about like the retail price.
Right,
when
right.
you buy tea, the majority of that value is going towards the marketing, the promotion of like the retail end. And the farmers are actually just getting a
Sliver of it.
small little sliver of it. And they gave me the idea, Elyse, like, we cannot keep this nonprofit running. So, if you want to keep this energy going of bridging tea growers to tea lovers, you should start a business, and, we can be your supply. And when I got back to Hawaii after the internship, my first weekend, I went to a startup weekend. I had no, tech entrepreneur experience, nothing. I've never been into computer programming. I had an interest. So I kind of kept up on things, and I knew about Bitcoin, and I was like really curious about a lot of the ideological stuff behind open source. And I went to the startup weekend and pitched this idea and convinced 2 of these people there to help me build this initial product of what we called a T-commerce. And the name Tealet actually came from that weekend when we were looking for available URLs, because that's how it is these days.
Right,
when you're starting a business, your branding is what URLs are going to be available for it. And Tealet.com was available. And so that's where Tealet started. And we ended up getting second place. And one of the judges was a venture partner for 500 Startups, which is one of the leading seed fund VCs, accelerators in Silicon Valley. And the guy said, Elyse, like, you have a lot to learn, but this is exactly the kind of companies that we like to invest in, companies that are taking, old analog businesses and bringing them online.
Yeah. Bringing them to the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so within 5 months, I had built out enough prototypes and had enough of the MVPs, as they call it. And we launched a crowdfunding effort and were able to raise a little over $5,000, which is, small, but those are what MVPs are meant for, to kind of prove a point. There is a customer, there is a demand, there is a story. And we got into their accelerator, got our first VC funding, and it all kind of happened really fast. And we ended up doing another accelerator in Hawaii. And then we decided to move the operation to Vegas, because at that time the downtown project was really pumping. Yeah, that was back in 2013. The downtown project was really pumping. And they were essentially using the 500 Startups as a vetting tool for their deal flow for the downtown project, because there was a strong partnership between Zappos and 500 Startups. And so we were able to get meetings, and we got funding relatively quickly after coming to Vegas. And it was kind of contingent that if you got funding from them, that you would relocate your business here.
Yeah. I was going to say, how did you end up here? But that's
Well,
amazing.
I originally decided on Vegas because of the airport, because there's a lot of travel involved in what I did. Because in the beginning, when I first launched Tealet, the goal was tea grower to consumer. So it was like a B2C type of brand that we were trying to build, that distribution. But I quickly learned that most of our customers that were finding us and curious about us and buying the tea were actually tea shop owners. So then I was realizing, the goal of this business is not to build this like powerful brand for tea lovers. The goal is to build a feasible supply chain for the farmers. So we're talking mass, how can we replace like the commodity trade system to the internet? And so that's when we switched over to B2B, which required a lot of travel.
Right.
Because,
our airport's amazing.
Yeah, the airport. I always remembered the Vegas airport just being so close to the city. And back in 2013, that was before the big explosion here. So definitely traffic wasn't such an issue. Now it's a little different story. But I'm really grateful that we relocated here. We got in before the big boom. And I was able to establish a lot of core relationships with, the coffee shops. Before this podcast started, we were talking about a Mothership Coffee, Sunrise Coffee. I had established that relationship pretty soon after arriving here. And so now, we're plugged into our supply chain here in Vegas, but, most of our business is happening in other cities around. And, when we're receiving large shipments from Asia, we receive them at Long Beach. And so the logistics of getting from Long Beach to here is not that challenging.
Right.
The rents are still more competitive and affordable here than in
California. Absolutely.
So it's been good. I'm really grateful that we came here before the big boom. I don't know if I would be as happy if I had came like 4 years ago. Now it's a little more challenging. I really was able to establish our brand and our community and my relationships here before it's kind of gotten chaotic and maybe oversaturated, but who knows? Vegas, it seems, is just still developing. Like, I don't know when we're going to meet that oversaturation point.
Yeah. And I think tea is, part of the wellness journey too. And wellness seems to be ever evolving, right? And so I think, when people talk about like holistic health and wellness, tea seems to be more and more at the forefront of those conversations. Are you seeing that being a big part of like why tea is, it just seems to be more prominent too?
Yeah. Tea is always, tea, a little history on tea. Tea comes from one plant, the Camellia sinensis plant. And that plant has the longest relationship with humankind, 5,000-year relationship. So longer than any other product. Now it's the second most widely drank beverage after water, of course. And when it originally started 5,000 years ago, it was a medicine.
Yeah.
And then it became a meditation tool.
Right.
Which, is medicine in its own. It's not a medicine as far as like healing anything, but it's a medicine. It's a proactive medicine. So even in traditional Chinese medicine and in Ayurvedic medicine, tea, which, the main component in Camellia sinensis and tea that makes it a medicine is something called L-theanine. And L-theanine works with caffeine. Tea has caffeine. They work together to create a nootropic effect of mental focus and body relaxation. So it's essentially like balancing the chakras or balancing chi within the body.
Right.
So that you can remain calm, you can sleep well. And those are all the things that are proactive of keeping us healthy. Of course, in Chinese medicine, once you're sick, a doctor will tell you not to drink tea and they will prescribe other herbs to make a soup that may, actually heal the ailment you're dealing with. But tea is more of a proactive lifestyle, ritualistic medicine, which is great, for the business of selling tea, because that means, it's something that someone's going to be buying on a daily basis. But unfortunately, a lot of the healing properties of tea have been co-opted by, the branding people. And it's so funny because, you got these brands at Whole Foods that are selling these like healing therapeutic teas, and they're in tea bags with microplastics that, and,
you go down the aisle and it's just like rows and they're all like prescribing some sort of like healing benefit.
Yeah. And so I don't agree with that. That's something that we educate our clients to not give health properties and health benefits to tea, but because really that L-theanine health property and even like the antioxidant property of tea that can help reduce the chances of getting cancer is a really real thing. There's scientific research to prove that you're not going to receive those benefits unless you are drinking tea every day of your life. So it's not like an easy cure that you're going to see after a week. And so the only way you're going to convince people to make tea a daily part of their life so that they do receive those benefits is if you sell tea as a lifestyle type of a thing. And so that's what we advocate as, healthy marketing of tea is how do you introduce tea to people so that they would want to drink it and make it a daily part of their lifestyle versus seeing tea as like a medicine or some kind of therapy, quick fix. So like all this like detox tea, the diet teas, that's all just marketing gimmicks. Like most of it is marketing gimmicks. And I'm grateful to say, I don't take sole responsibility of it, but I know that the work that I've been doing and, I have many peers. If anybody's watching this podcast, you would identify who you are, that we've been doing this work for over a decade. And I have seen a change in, the grocery store tea aisles. When I was first starting, it was like 100% scam, 100% dirty, bad energy tea with microplastics and tea bags. But, every year, a larger and larger portion of that aisle is going to loose leaf tea. There are, better sources of tea that are making their way to the grocery store. And, I'm very happy to say that a couple of clients that I've worked with have stepped up their distribution and now are getting really good quality, direct trade, ethically sourced tea to the big box aisles. It's going to take a lot of work because ultimately that was a challenge when I first started Tealet was, everybody was like loving this romantic story. Like my brother is a filmmaker. We've built the business together and we've gone to all the tea farms, all of the partners that we work with. We've gone to visit them. I used to visit them every year. Since the pandemic, I haven't. But we would make National Geographic style videos of the farms, the communities, the processing, and we license that out to all the businesses we work with so that they can use that in their marketing, that storytelling marketing. And so people were attracted to that. But then when they would see the price list, they would say, oh, well, this is 5 times more expensive than what we're currently getting. And it's, but this is like good quality and this is going like most of that money is going back. But it was just such a hard, like from a business perspective, when you're looking at margins, it was so hard to break through that barrier. But what's happening now, and I called this back. In fact, I brought this. I thought this would be a fun little thing to show you. This was this September 16, 2014.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. I got this 10-year-old little notebook that was given to me at the 5th North American Tea Conference, which it cost me like $8,000 to go to this thing. When I first got our VC funding, I was encouraged to do things like this to like make a splash in the industry. And so I was spending money to do these types of things. And I took notes here, and there was like like an economist who had done some pretty deep research into the Sri Lankan tea industry. And let's see the note in here. It was saying that if they were talking about the sustainability of the tea industry. So the profit margins for the producers have been every year going smaller and smaller. And that was my work. I knew about that, because that was the challenge that the farmers had told me is that, the market price that they would get in their local markets just kept going lower and lower, but their cost of fertilizer, their cost of labor, all of that was going higher. So the margins every year are getting smaller and smaller. And so I knew about that, but this economist had, from a third party perspective, had given some real numbers that the Sri Lankan government had been subsidizing the industry. So essentially giving subsidies to the farmers to make sure that they were making just enough money so that they can continue to produce tea to satisfy the market. But they would need to increase the retail price of tea would need to increase 7 times in order to support just baseline sustainability. This is not even like profits or anything. This is just baseline sustainability because the government was running out of funding to subsidize this to happen. So like they knew that there was like an end of the line coming. And so they asked these economists to come look at it. So back in 2014, I heard that. And that was like alarms going off.
Right.
It's like, how's that math going to work?
Right.
Like there needs to be an adjustment of market appreciation of this product to support the production of it. 7x. Like this is not like a 20% increase, 7x.
Right.
So, if you're currently buying a box of tea bags for $5, you would need to be buying it for $35 just to support sustainability, not to support the business profits, which we know that's going to happen. So, potentially is going to be even more than $35. So I knew back in 2014 that the market price of tea was naturally just going to have to go up, inflation, right? And we're in the middle of it right now. We're in the, like, they keep calling it shrinkflation and, like this is like just companies trying. I honestly think that this is companies preparing. Preparing for it. But what's great about our business model is we haven't had to increase our prices because we were already paying a sustainable price. Like from day one, we were already paying the growers a fair, sustainable, great price for production. So since the pandemic, we've never had to increase prices. There's been, we're trying to be as transparent as possible. So, sometimes growers do contact us and say, hey, we had this happen or this input had an increase. And so we're going to have to increase our prices. It's happened on one hand, I can count the teas that the price has had to increase. And when that happens, we send out a big newsletter to all the buyers to let them know because we want to keep everybody updated, informed. But at the same time, we tell the producers stability of price is most important for us to compete in the market because a business is like, if you can keep the price consistent for them on a wholesale end, they're going to be loyal to you because they can know, they're not going to be bumping up our prices every year, 20%, 20 gouging. They're not going to be doing like we want to keep things consistent for these businesses. And I'm grateful to say that we haven't had to increase our prices, and that's going to fare really well for us because everybody else is increasing their prices to adjust for the sustainability. It was kind of this artificial low price that through the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, we've been experiencing, and this like false sense of, I've been calling it a false sense of abundance even as consumers. Right. We used to be able to walk into Walmart and just feel like, we can just buy everything, buy everything we want. But now it's different. People
are feeling it.
We're feeling it. And, it's affecting different people differently. I mean, and this is the great thing about people that have experienced poverty is like, I say we, because I'm one of them, like we have resilience. Like we're already used to it. We're already used to knowing how to budget. We're already used, but people that haven't experienced that, it's going to play a big impact, mentally, like it's going to affect their feeling of humanness, their feeling of wholeness. Like I can't just buy whatever I want. Like it's going to affect their mental health. And, I do a lot of content creation online, and that's a part of the content that I make is helping empower people to see that our humanness is not connected to what we consume. It's connected to, how we consume, and connoisseurship can be happiness. And even people like connoisseurship is not associated with wealth. A lot of people associate that. And that's not what it is. You can be in poverty and still be a connoisseur, and you're going to experience so much more happiness. You may not be consuming all this other stuff, but it's like you can hyper focus. This is the thing that I really value. It brings me joy. And, maybe I will invest 30% of my income to this thing that is going to bring me joy
differently. Then how do you translate all that? So you said your brother's an investor in your business, or does he run the business with you?
We work together. We work together.
So tell me a little bit about your business. So you got the VC funding and you run this business. So how has it been running a business? What has been some of the learnings and journey from a business, I guess, entrepreneurship running? What have been some of the tough lessons?
So, I mean, I guess the main tough lesson is that my business model and the ideology that I'm trying to share, which, very much is a matriarchal, feminine type of idea. It's like a long future, long game type of business. And it's very like women and child centered versus male centered. It's not fit for traditional VC. And I tried to make it fit in the beginning, and I got really heartbroken. I'll tell a story specifically about Downtown Project because now that is all kind of dissolved. There was never an NDA or anything, but I just never wanted to share this story because I wanted to respect them. But after we got the funding, I was very excited to meet Tony Hsieh. I was very excited, because I just only heard all these great stories about him and, oh, he's going to help my business so much. And he's such a great entrepreneur. And I never actually got a meeting with him. Like I kind of forced some collisions, as he used to call them. They were always at parties and he was never in a straight state. But I did get a meeting with like his right-hand man. And I was really excited for that meeting. And we sat down and he like immediately made it clear to me that he didn't know my business model. And so he was like, yeah, tell me about your business model. And so I tell him about it, and this is a good chance for me to tell you about it. So it's very clear cut, and it's always been since day one. So the whole purpose is to make sure that the majority of money goes to the farmer. So we have 3 different business models. Brokering, which is where we don't even touch the tea. We just facilitate the deal between the buyer and the grower will ship it directly from their origin to the buyer. And we handle all of the FDA compliance and payments and everything. We take an 8% cut on that. Sometimes we take a bigger cut depending on the size of the deal, but at minimum 8%. Then if we're holding the tea, there's 2 different models. One's consignment and one is prepay. On consignment, that means the grower forwards the tea and then we pay back after it's sold. And on that one, we get a 20% commission. So essentially like a 20% discount. And then on prepay, that means that we're taking on the inventory risk. We're fronting the money. We get a 40% discount. So clean cut. That's it.
Yeah.
The most money we make is 40% on the prepay. And I'm really proud of that, and like that, I think that's a healthy enough margin that if we can really expand beyond just tea, because what I'm trying to build here is an Alibaba for the food industry where any kind of commodity can be traded and producers and buyers can interact with one another. That's a healthy margin. And he immediately was like, oh, no, like we invested in you because we thought that you had control on your supply chain. We're used to companies being able to land a cashmere sweater in the US for $7 and then retail it for $79. He was like, can't you just go find cheaper tea and then mark it up?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, because our business model is asking the question, who got fucked and what land got raped to get that $7 cashmere sweater.
Right. We're looking out for the farmer.
Yeah, we're looking out for like sustainability of our supply chain. And he says, oh, Elyse, you better not ever tell Tony that. And I was like, what? Like, I thought Tony cared about community, like that return on community. And he was like, oh, mantra. No. He's like, no, Tony doesn't even believe in recycling. Like, no, he believes that humanity is going to be gone within 200 years. Like, he's a futurist. And I was like, oh. And, now seeing what Elon Musk is doing in the White House is really showing us what Silicon Valley and what, this tech world and entrepreneurship world really thinks about the future and really thinks about humanity. And like an idea like mine, like really has no place there. And so I left that meeting crying. And, to top it off on that specific story, in the middle of that meeting, a random person that was like co-working at another table was kind of overhearing our conversation, and he came up and interrupted our conversation and was like, I'm so sorry, but like I kind of heard y'all talking about tea over here, and I'm actually starting a tea shop in San Francisco, and I'm like looking for suppliers, and I heard something about like direct trade, you're importing. I'd really love to get your card. Like I was getting an inquiry right there, right there in the middle of the meeting, and he still like didn't see it.
Yeah.
And just
how disheartening.
It was so disheartening. Yeah. So that was a very powerful experience of just like realizing the truth. And so from that point forward, I never pursued any more venture capital. Wow. And, I ended up like Uber driving for several years to sustain our inventory purchases. I always like made sure that the business could operate on its own. But if I ever wanted to pursue new purchasing, new inventories, I would use like my own personal hustle to make it happen. And I no longer have to do that.
Right.
Like we're beyond that point. And now we're at a point where we are able to pursue new things. And right now the new project I'm working on, and this is like the most exciting, I'm most excited about, we're going to buy a sailboat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're going to buy a sailboat so we can take our own cargo under sail. We can just go pick up our own shipments.
That's amazing.
The first thing I want to do after I get this boat is reenact the Boston Tea Party, which is totally appropriate right now with all these
Everything
tariffs,
that's going on.
that are being proposed.
Well, I have to say, like, one of the things that I love about that story and that I teach within the business coaching and some of the mastermind thing is that a company really has to have solid core values. And a lot of the coaching that I do, sometimes I'll get into a company and sit down with the CEO and often the leadership team and ask them what their core values are. And more often than not, the leadership team either can name one or none or two or three of their core values. And I just think it's a testament that you know what your core values are as a human and as your business to be able to say, because core values aren't just like things you put on a wall and say, oh, we are integrity and honesty. They're really what you hire, fire, you choose your partners, suppliers, and your funding partners. You actually decide everything that happens within the ecosystem of your business, who you decide to take money from, who you decide to engage with, supplier-wise, partnership-wise. And it sounds like you really had to like dig in and go, this is who Tealet stands for. These are our core values. And we're not going to take venture capitalist money. We're not going to partner with these organizations that don't understand what our core values are. And they are whatever they are, but at our core, sustainability for farmers. And that's just a beautiful thing because a lot of companies, more often than not, don't know what they are and will often shortchange their own core values to take the next step forward for whatever reason. So I think that's amazing. And something you said earlier too struck me, and I wanted to make sure because I'm listening to the Wayne Dyer book about power of intention right now. And this morning on my walk with my dog, he was talking about the word coincidence and how people think that it's like happy accidents, but a coincidence actually when two things perfectly align. Intentionally, that they're not accidents that happen.
No. I made those things happen.
Right. And you said, like, I don't know if it was just coincidence, but coincidence is actually like the definition of it is when two things happen because they're actually supposed to happen. And I just thought that was so very interesting that you said that because I had never heard that definition of coincidence before. And when Wayne Dyer said it in the book that I'm listening to this morning, I was like, people often equate coincidence to like, oh, it just accidentally happened, but that's not what the definition of a coincidence is. So everything that happened in your story.
I agree with that definition. And like, that was intention. I made those things happen and I made sacrifices and I was waiting for them.
Everything.
I've been waiting for those things to happen. Even our meeting.
Yeah.
That was also a coincidence, but we made that happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we stood for our values and we made it happen. And then now we're having this conversation and coincidence that you learned the word coincidence this morning. And it was all meant to happen. Like, and we made it happen.
Right.
And, like what I trust and I have faith in to make those things happen and know that they're going to happen is humility.
Yeah.
And then another definition on humility that is, and maybe this will also surprise you because it always surprises people. And it surprised me when I like learned it. And I only learned this because I do these like deep dives on my live stream where I try to learn something and get very intellectual about it. And now great with ChatGPT, it's awesome. It just like hyperdrives this. But so humility, the root of the word humility or humble, it actually means that your ego is so big and so complete and so strong that you are confident in the idea that you are just as important as everybody else, or everybody else is just as important as you, or everything is just as important as you. So being humble does not mean that you are less than or
dim your light.
Yeah, a lot of people think that like, oh, I don't want to be humiliated. I don't want to be humble. It's like, no, but like being humble means that you're so strong and so confident in who you are that you're okay with someone else having the spotlight.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think they often equate that because like some of the sayings is like humble yourself. And it's like seems like an action that is like the lesson.
Yeah, people always like, they make it a negative thing. And I use that word all the time. Like I'll tell someone, oh, you got humiliated. Like you should be grateful. And they're like, what? Why would? And I was like, because like more coincidences are going to happen for you.
Yeah,
like,
there's lessons and learnings in that.
You're going to become a more powerful person. And now you're going to become more powerful. The power that already exists is going to come through. Yeah. Like, and that's the issue is like we hold back our power when we don't have that humility.
Yeah, I love that. That is really awesome. And so now here, other than the sailboat, that's pretty exciting to be able to do that. I want to come to your Boston Tea Party. I think that's so exciting. What's like up for Tealet this year? Like there's the sailboat. What are you hoping to accomplish? 2025 is kind of a big year. There's a lot going on the national level, international level, right? I mean, you certainly can go political, but what are you hoping to accomplish this year for yourself?
Yeah, no, I want to facilitate this revolution. And, the Boston Tea Party was the moment, that revolutionary moment for our country here that sparked a light. And, I've been doing deep dives on that. That's what I've been doing all this past month, is deep diving the honest history, because a lot of the honest history, like this it's called the patriot myth, has kind of taken over the honest history. And the honest history of the Boston Tea Party and what was going on there and our founding fathers is that they weren't as like liberty focused and equality focused as we think. And that was a big myth, but we have a chance to redo it and to do it with like the women energy, the feminine energy versus this masculine patriarchal energy that really just kind of supported white supremacy. And people don't like to hear that, and they feel like they're being attacked.
Right,
they feel like you're the bully when you say that. But it's the honest truth, and we can't have shame by it. Like,
no, I think we have to have conversations around it and just be honest about it, right?
Yeah. So, and I've been saying that this is so the Boston Tea Party was carried out by a kind of underground revolutionary group called the Sons of Anarchy, and I like to call it the Daughters of Anarchy. Or not the anarchy, I'm so sorry, the Sons of Liberty.
Yeah.
Not anarchy, although it may feel like anarchy. But yeah, the Daughters of Liberty, to kind of give that feminine energy to it, which wouldn't be nonviolent, because the Boston Tea Party was a very violent, like for many reasons, was a very violent revolutionary moment. And so I think this needs to be a nonviolent, consensual, very knowledgeable revolutionary moment. And, another big like tech project that I've been talking about for years, and I think that the time is now, especially with our current administration, of actually being supportive of crypto, because that's been one of the factors holding us back from really building out our crypto dreams. Because Tealet is actually one of the first Bitcoin merchants in the world. We've been a leader of the crypto movement since day one. Yeah, we actually still use crypto for our payments. So like when we send payments to the growers in Japan or Nepal, traditionally when you send a bank wire or a PayPal payment or any of the other traditional methods, at least 10% is absorbed. Governments take it, the banks take it. So, when you send $100 to a farmer, they're only receiving like $88, and they're like, hey, where's the other 12? And so we make sure that the farmers make 100%. We make sure that both sides of our marketplace are happy. So the farmers want all their money. So we use crypto to move the money into their country, and then it all gets exchanged instantaneously from fiat to fiat, so that there's no gain or loss.
Nice.
But yeah, we've been doing that since 2014. But what I want to build now is essentially like an ICO platform, a initial coin offering platform, where a farmer, or in the case of cargo shipment, like with this boat, and kind of a bigger idea is to have other private owner of boats be able to rent out cargo space for shipment of high value items that people may want to, have hand delivered to places, art or other high value commodities, that there can be an initial coin offering of the future value of that crop or that cargo shipment.
Yeah.
And investors, or more likely would actually be the customer, could buy into that ICO and then redeem their coin later on. So in the case of a tea buyer, one of our buyers, a farmer could launch their ICO, say, in 7 months, this crop will be available, but for the time being, we need money now for irrigation systems, fertilizers, whatever else they would need the money. And so the coin has a certain value when they first launch it, but then once the crop is harvested and processed and ready for the market, the value
increases,
it's a utility coin. So this is not like securities that we're dealing in. This is an actual utility coin, because the value of the coin is associated to an actual product or thing. And so then that buyer of the coin could then exchange that coin for the tea that they wanted. So it's essentially being able to like prepay for the futures. And then additional investors, just people or businesses, could also buy into that coin. And we have 13 years of purchase order history to prove that there's buyers. Like this is actually going to have value once this product exists. So that's like kind of like the tech product that I'm excited
very, very
to
cool.
build out this year.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I love that. And so how has it been? I know we have your little daughter here in the studio, balancing business ownership, motherhood. What lessons have you learned through that? I know it takes a village sometimes to do all of those things.
Yeah. So the main lesson that I've learned and I'm so grateful for is that my daughter has taught me like how to say no and how to prioritize myself because I have to.
Yeah.
You know, I have to. Like before, I used to just work endlessly, hustle culture. I was all into. And I got a little bit burnt out on that and kind of grateful to the pandemic that kind of helped me, you know, kind of say no to things like logistically because of the pandemic. But now my daughter has really helped me have boundaries and standards for myself. And so, yeah, now if someone wants my time, I'm going to ask for value in exchange for it. You know, I used to just like give myself out until I was depleted for everybody just for the sake of hustle culture. And
it's not worth it.
No, it's not
worth it. I love that she's giving you that lesson.
Yeah.
I think you brought some tea with you.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we can have some. I wanted to prepare this earlier, but so I've got some matcha here. I've already strained it. So matcha is kind of like our cash cow. It's like our biggest growing segment of what we do in our business, although we do have oolong black tea, white tea, pu'er tea. This is definitely not ceremonial what I'm going to be doing here. You know, you do see a lot of like the Japanese tea ceremony. I'm just using this little bamboo whisk to add some water in. I'll add some more. I dilute it because this is going to be kind of strong.
I've never seen matcha be made before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is new for me.
Cool. Well, this is definitely not the ceremonial way. If you ever go to a Japanese tea garden or something, they usually have like a little tea house you can go in and there's like a practitioner of the official ceremony. And, you know, ceremony just means that there's meaning behind every step of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Here, you know, I'm just preparing it. But there is something in Chinese culture called Gung Fu Cha, and I do practice that. And there is some Gung Fu happening here. And that's an intentional thing. It's the same word as Kung Fu, and it basically means do something with great skill. And that skill doesn't necessarily come from just practice, but it comes from the intention of doing the best you can with the resources that are available to you. And I love that because then, you know, you can practice that in all parts of your life. And it's an intentional that like my intention is that I want to serve the best bowl of tea to you that I can. So here you go.
For me?
Yeah, that's for you.
I can just drink it?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no rules or there's no way that you need to do it.
Oh,
but
it smells delicious.
Yeah. So this is like the whole ground up tea leaf. That's why it has such strong like antioxidant properties, and it's the most high in caffeine, but it's also got the L-theanine. So caffeine from tea is different than coffee. It's not going to give you this big rush of energy. It's a more sustained release and it's mental focus, body relaxation.
This is really good. I've not really been like a matcha person. I don't even know if I've ever had it, to be honest with you.
Well, you can get it at a mothership. They got the goods good there.
Excited. Well, thank you. I don't know that I've ever met a food scientist. I don't know that I've met someone that I know I've met someone in the piece. You've done so much, and I'm just so fascinated. This is why I love connecting with women and women business owners, because they like the tapestry of women's lives and the things that they do and how they bring that to business ownership is just so fascinating to me. And so we met online. And then we had this crazy little interaction, and now we're sitting here enjoying like tea. I just think it's amazing. And I would love to come. I want to come tour your facility. I had the flu, so I was supposed to go do it last week, and I wasn't able to do it. So hopefully this will help me get over the last hump of my little cold thing that's going on.
It should help.
But I want to learn more about your business. I want to have you back on. And I just love that you came and shared all of that. I'm like swirling from everything that I want to learn some more about it all. But this has been amazing. Thank you for coming and sharing your story. You are a traveled woman. You're like such an educated woman. And I just love that you have this business that's thriving here and that's all about sustainability. I know some people I want to introduce you to that are all about sustainability. There's a TEDx that's like coming to town in August that has some great TED Talks. I wish I would have known about you then, because you would have been great on that stage to talk about sustainability.
I was going to apply, but
you should have applied, because we don't have someone. I think you would have been really great in one of the categories. So next time they do a talk, I think you would have been amazing to be on that stage. So
I've done TEDx a couple of times
Really?
before. Yeah. And
That would've
it's
been
been a
amazing.
while, so I'd like to do it again. But
Yeah, I think that would have been incredible. I need to introduce you to my friend Jen, who's all about like sustainability and clothes and
okay.
stuff. I think the two of you would be like besties.
Cool.
So, but I really appreciate you being on my show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been awesome. All right, before we go, can you let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, I can be found at tealet.com. Our social handles are tealet. I do live stream daily on TikTok now. I don't know where we will move after the app will inevitably leave our country, but I can be found everywhere, Tealet. And my email address is Elyse@tealet.com.
I love that. Thank you. If you like what you saw today on the Catalyst podcast, make sure you subscribe to our show, like it, and share it with someone who you think might also find value.